Hello there and welcome to today's edition of Business Africa. Coming up in the headlines, Russia hosted the first ever Russia-Africa summit this week in a catch-up bid for influence, commercial opportunities and cooperation with the continent. 2 months after Nigeria's border closure with Benin, we explore its possible ramifications on both countries. The International Monetary Fund forecasts slow economic growth for Sub-Saharan Africa in 2020. IMF is worried about the prevailing gaps in the region. Over 30 national leaders from across Africa converged in Sochi for 2 days of talks. This is the first major gathering of African leaders in Russia. Over 10,000 politicians and business leaders are expected. According to the Russian authorities, the event is targeted at strengthening and deepening the relationship between Africa and Russia. Solo Aruna Kato have more.
In 2018, Russia says its trade with Africa amounted to $20 billion, less than half that of France and 10 times less that of China. In terms of investment in Africa, Moscow is still a small player, but there's one constant. Its investments increased by 17.5% in 2018 compared to 2017. Exports have doubled in 3 years and now account for 4% of the total compared to 1% 5 years ago. And as if to strengthen this momentum, this week Moscow hosted the first Russian-African summit in the city of Sochi. An ambitious venture. President Vladimir Putin has said Russia, quote, has a lot to offer the African states, end of quote. Moscow is up against other powers, such as China and the US, in its scramble for Africa. The Russians are eager to step away from their traditional business of arms exports and military consultancies to strengthen their presence in the mining and energy sectors.
Let's find out more about this particular meeting, and a teacher researcher based in Brazzaville, Congo, Obambe Ingakoso, joins us now. Good to have you on the program, sir.
Hello.
What thoughts do you hold about this first ever Russia-Africa summit targeted at strengthening, deepening and redefining economic relations for mutual benefits among the countries?
For 45 years, everyone has been interested in Africa on this issue. First was the French with the France-Africa Summit that became Africa-France. The Chinese also created theirs, as well as Japanese. The Israelis also wanted to create theirs. It collapsed, but it will return. The Turks are also on the market. So we just have to say to ourselves that it is not for nothing. It is not for nothing that people are interested in you as an individual, a company, or even a state. And that's where the problem lies. It will be necessary to redefine the concept. I said that Africans will go to Sochi in Russia or to Washington tomorrow. But among Africans, we must first meet to define our specifications. What are the immediate needs in the medium to long term on the continent? And what can this summit bring to us? What are the agreements that can bring us something? And that's where we fall most of the time. This is why Africans will tell you that the summit is just useless.
So do you think Russia is competitive enough to sweep a portion of the market influence of Western powers?
What Russia is doing today is not new. The Soviet Union collapsed in the 90s. From 22 republics, there was almost nothing left but Russia. Russia has redefined its cycle of influence and understood that Africa is a land that must be seen differently, the way the Soviet Union looked at the earth at the time. I always say that what interested the Soviets much more at the time was to export communist ideology in order to conquer the world, so that everyone will be communists. It didn't work. We can see that it failed. Today, Russians know that Africa is an important market with the Chinese market. The Russians know what they can do in Africa, they cannot do in China, because China is a special market. It is one of the strongest markets in the world. So competition between Russians and others has always existed. It is not new, except that today it is changing in its form. We see it with the return of military advisors who play a role in exchange for peace in Central Africa. But it's not free. Central Africa has a lot of wood, diamonds, and maybe someday oil. So the Russians only do what others always have to, but in a different way.
Apart from military cooperation, which other sectors do you think Africa can benefit from Russian expertise?
If we want to cooperate with Russia, we must understand one thing. Russia has large reserves of oil and gas, which they exploit first. So that is the interest for our countries. How the Russians manage to exploit all their oil, minerals they have at their disposal. So this is where we must send people, not only to be trained as in the past, but to be trained and return home to train. We can win here. Today, for us to win, it's not about bringing in Russian companies, for which they will exploit what there is to exploit in our country. Yes, it is always possible, but it is necessary to redefine it. Most of the time when we have contracts, our states have difficulty in gaining 35% of what is produced. Let's stop for a moment with the contract we signed with the Westerners. The current contracts are allowed to run, but we need to sign new deals with Russia. With technology transfer, one needs a market, but you have to transfer the technology. So that's how we have to redefine it. But we should not do it alone. The Congo should not do it alone. Gabon should not do it alone. We have to do it all together, because there's strength in unity. Today, Europeans find themselves in the European Union because they have understood that individually, France, Germany, Italy cannot stand up to the United States.
Thank you very much, Obambe Ngakoso, for all the insight you have given us today. Obambe Ngakoso is a teacher researcher based in Brazzaville, Congo.
Thank you.
After the break, we find out how Nigeria's border closure is affecting economic activities in Benin.